Laying the draw is by far the easiest Betfair strategy. Now, I've said this before with other strategies, but laying the draw is really simple. All you're wanting to do is make sure that at some point in that match, the draw is not the most likely outcome. It doesn't need to not end in a draw. Obviously, if it doesn't end in a draw, you can make a big amount of profit, but if you're letting your trade run through the whole match, you're basically just placing a bet. When it comes to trading itself, you're looking for them opportunities in the market to get that profit without needing to have a huge amount of risk on the line. So let me show you an example. So if we're looking here at Southampton Wrexham, that's taking part right now, and we look at the odds here from when the match was in play. So you can see here that starting odds, we were looking at around that 3.5 mark, and that is to back the draw. So to lay it'll have been a little bit higher than that. But what we're looking for here was a match where you lay the odds and then you're wanting them odds to rise. You're wanting that draw to not be the most likely outcome. And as you can see here, as the match went on, the odds started to drop for laying the draw. So the draw was becoming the more likely option because there wasn't a goal in the game. Now this might look slightly confusing because as you'll have saw there before, Wrexham did score quite early in this game, or around in the 21st minute. And you can see in the odds roughly around about when that happened. And that was this big spike here. This big spike going up. Now this is probably a bit of a strange game to pick because actually Wrexham taking the lead made the draw more likely. It basically meant because Southampton were that much clear the favourites at the start of the match, that Wrexham scoring didn't really impact the odds, and it just made it more likely a draw would come because they expected Southampton to get back into it. And as you can see, the odds have massively dropped here over the course of the last 10 minutes because Southampton have just scored. So that draw is incredibly likely now. It's the 90th minute. It's going to be a draw. In fact, if I show the full odds here, you can roughly see over the course of the last hour and the last 3 hours what the odds have been like throughout the match. So even though there was a goal when it was in play, there wasn't any sort of indication that a draw was less likely or more likely. It just kept plodding along as you'd expect in a match. Just to show this again, you can see here that as the match goes on, this one is Reading Huddersfield. If the game stays 0-0, the draw slowly becomes more and more likely. And that's what happens. Ideally, when you're looking to get into the lay of the draw strategy, you're wanting a match where there is a goal quick from either the favourite or you think the underdog can get 1 or 2 pretty early. Now, it doesn't need to be the start of a match. That's quite a big misconception with laying the draw. The examples I'm going to show you in a second are from the start of the match, but it doesn't need to be from the start of the match. When you're doing the lay the draw strategy, you can join the match at any point. So if you're waiting for the best opportunity to join and you think it is at lower odds and you know there will be a goal coming, by all means get into that. As long as you're confident with what your starting point and your exit point is going to be throughout the match, then by all means go for it. But you're just looking for that opportunity where the odds are varied from when you joined. So as you can see here with this example with Reading Huddersfield, if you'd have got in down here at this, I believe, 1.76, as you can see, which was the lowest, if you'd have got in just before that Huddersfield goal happened, so there for an example, if you'd have got in at that 1.76, as we just saw, and then left when it got to its highest of 11, which is where it is roughly now, you'd have got 80% profit back on your trade. Now, the key thing with laying the draw is you're never going to lose 100% of your stake because you should be looking to leave the match at a given point. You should have your predetermined exit point set up, which means your whole stake is never at risk, but you might have some. Now, the key to note with laying the draw is when you're laying something, if I just come over to a match that hasn't yet started, say you were laying the draw in Oxford-Portsmouth. You go to lay the draw, if you put in £10 there, that is not going to cost you £10 to place. Your liability is higher than your stake. When it comes to laying, it will always be the case like that. So what your best opportunity to do here, if you only want to risk that £10, is to press this liability button and then put in £10 there. And then you can see here, your liability is £9.99, so basically £10. So that's how you do it if you want to have the same idea side of it as if you were just placing a normal back stake. But in this instance here, you can see that a draw is fairly unlikely. It's more likely that Oxford win. Portsmouth are slightly off the odds, but again, it's very similar odds amongst all three. But if we were to look at this in our calculator, you can see if we put in the lay odds, which is currently at 3.35, we'd be using a lay stake of £4.25, and then it would be a case of waiting to see what odds come in to see what profit we can get. So let's say that a goal does go in quite early. From either one of these, it's not going to make too much of a difference because they're that equal. it's really not going to sway the odds. So this wouldn't be a great game to go in. You really need to go for a game where there is a clear favourite, because in that instance, you're then going to see a jump in the odds. The best scenario I've seen is to find a match where there's a clear favourite, make sure they are dominating the game and you're watching along, but the odds for the draw will close and get shorter because the game is still 0-0, but you're still expecting that goal, and maybe enter that market at half time. As you saw with that Red and Huddersfield example, if you were to enter at half time, you get much better odds, which means more opportunity for profit because you have a bigger gap to jump to if a goal goes in. So let me just show you some examples. So if we look at the lay in the draw strategy, I've looked at 4 matches. This was back in the qualification phases of the Champions League, so you can see exactly what would happen throughout the match. So you can see here with this match, the starting lay odds were 4.9. If we'd have gone in there with a £10 liability, that's a £2.56 stake. And you can see at different points in the match what the score was and what the profit and loss would have been. So you can see instantly off the bat, we would have had profit even at 0-0 just because of how the odds changed. So you can see the back odds went up to 5.3, which indicates you don't always need the goal, you just need a lively start to the match in some cases. But here we would have got 15 pence profit if we'd have left in the first 27 minutes. You can see then though, in the 35th minute, it did drop because the match had been going for a bit longer and there still wasn't a goal. So we could have left there for a 4 pence loss. Then in the 40th minute, we got a goal, which meant the profit obviously went up, the odds changed, and you can see there we could have then left for a 17% profit on our liability. Half time, that has dropped a little bit. Ideally, when it's laying the draw, unless the team's completely dominating and you think there's more goals coming, it's best to go straight after the goal because, as always, if it's 1-0, them odds are going to keep dropping throughout the match. If we then look at match 2, you can see here we had a starting lay of 8.0 and we had a stake of £1.43. Again, still at the £10 liability. But you can see here that throughout the match, the 27th minute, we had a goal go in and it was 85 pence profit. Now, the fact that it's a different jump in profit, the first match went straight up to £1.71, this one went at 85 pence. It can be a huge range of things. It can either be the team's ability, the team that wasn't the favourite taking the lead, or it could just be the time in the match. As you can see, this one came earlier, so there is more opportunity for the other team to get back into it. But you can see in the 35th minute, there was then another goal, which meant the profit went up. And then in the 40th minute, you can see the profit stayed roughly the same because it was 2-0. So it's not going to have that sharp of a decline, but the profit was still there. And then at half time, it was pretty much guaranteed. The other team weren't getting back into it. And you can see the profit there was at £1.32. Nice 13% profit. Now the third out of the 4 matches I'm going to show you is another profit match. The 4th one is a loss match, just so you can compare and see what the difference is. But you can see here, this one would have got you an instant profit of 35 pence in the 8th minute because a goal went in. But because of how unlikely a draw was straight from the off with starting odds of 20.0, it really isn't worth getting in. And in fact, you wouldn't have been able to even place this on Betfair because your stake would have been under £1. So that is one to keep in mind there. But it does just show you that even in this instance here, you've still got that £10 risk. But because of how unlikely the draw was straight from the off, the opportunity for profit just is not there. This might have been a good match where if it was still somehow 0-0 at half time, the odds might look a little bit more appealing. And then all you would need is that one goal to see the odds shoot straight back up. And then that might have been a good spot for you to get your profit. But looking at this final match, this is where there was a bit of a loss. So you can see here the starting odds were 3.55, putting our £2.92 stake, which was the £10 liability. And you can see here, in the 8th minute, we would have lost 29 pence. In the 22nd minute, we would have lost £1.04. And then so on till half time, where the odds were that low that we would have lost £2.10. So on our loss trade here, we were looking at 21%. On our profit trades, we were looking at 5%, 13%, and 15%. If we'd have left all the matches at half time. So just to show you here, going in on all these matches, we would have still been up in profit. We would have had £1.24 profit, which on £10 liabilities is a 12% profit rate, and we hit 75% of the matches. Now going forward, I'm going to show you some assumptions. This is just based off their matches, and then we'll go into what this would look like over the course of a whole season. What we're going to say here is the average amount you'd win on a winning trade is around that 11%. Average amount you'd lose would be 21%. Obviously, it will vary match to match, but it's the best we can do. So looking at League One last season, again, this is very rough. Please don't take this as gospel. The best way to do this is if we could have done it on every single match and kept all the odds throughout them, but it's just not feasible to do that. But you can see here in League One last season, there was 552 matches. 67% of them could have had a lay the draw opportunity because there was 178 matches that were 0-0 at half time. And if we were entering at half time, it has the opportunity there for profit. There was 374 matches where there was a goal in the first half, which could have led to profit. There will have been some instances where it was the team that wasn't the favourite, as we saw with that Southampton-Wrexham game, where there wouldn't have been profit, but there also wouldn't have been much of a loss in that instance either. It would have just kind of evened out. So just looking at this, using them odds, again, it's very rough, but it's the best I can do just to show an example. Going in from the start of the match to half-time last year in League One, would have saw you make about £43 profit. It's really not worth it. It's a 2% return on investment. It just proves everything that we always say. You can't just set and forget with Betfair strategies. You need to pick the matches carefully, pick your entry point properly, and pick your exit point properly too. It's the best way to maximise your profit on Betfair, and there's no other way to really do it. There's no way to get around it. It needs careful selection, careful monitoring, and a good, determined approach to leave when you say you'll leave and to stick when you say you'll stick. It's the exact reason why not everyone can do Betfair trading, because it does really need that disciplined approach. So laying the draw is very simple. You literally want to lay the draw when the draw looks like it's the most likely option, but you know it's not going to be, and then leave as soon as them odds change. It is very simple to do, but it's quite hard to master. If you want to see me doing some actual live examples, some live trade examples, looking at it over the course of a weekend and showing you how I do my match selection, let me know down in the comments and I'll be happy to do that. Set me a budget if you like, but don't go too crazy. But I'll be more than happy to go through a whole weekend and show you how I'm doing my match selection, which matches I'm going for, which entry points I've got and which exit points I've got. And we can see just how much I'd make over the course of a weekend. But if you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time.